So I am here with my friend Walt Hastings. Walt is one of our Luke 10 coaches. He has just finished one of the foundation courses. We call it Foundations 1. So Walt, first of all, why don't you tell us about your cohort? Cohort is a name we use for the group. And you had how many people in it, and where were these people from?
John, there were 9 people plus myself from 3 different countries, 4 from Tennessee, 2 from Oklahoma.
Tennessee is one of those countries? Sorry.
2 people from Russia and 1 from Auckland, New Zealand.
So that's a far-flung group. Is it possible to have a sense of community in only 6 weeks? The course was 6 weeks long. Was there a sense of community that developed in that time?
It was rather amazing. We had 3 conference calls that we did Skype using video, so they were able to see one another, besides 3 individual coaching sessions as well. On our 3rd conference call to a person, they said, "I don't want this to end. I wish we could just keep going on."
Wow, that's amazing to see what's happened in a short period of time.
Yes.
Part of being in the cohort was the workbook. So the workbook has assignments for each week.
Yes.
And you said that one of the things that people were surprised about in the Foundations course was what they were learning. They thought it was about learning how to facilitate or lead a small group. Talk about that for just a minute.
Yes, they signed up somehow, even though we told them what it was about, and we actually gave them titles for each week's lessons. They were expecting it to be about how to more effectively facilitate a house church or small groups. Instead, it was more foundational than that. It was about developing an intimate relationship with the Lord, about ways to hear God's voice, and also how to examine our own hearts so that we're more in touch with our own feelings and emotions, and then being able to share that openly with one other person and to hear their story without being compelled to fix them and the problems that they were sharing.
You said that there was a paradigm shift that occurred in terms of how people hear God's voice. Talk about kind of where they were at the beginning, and then what was the change? What was the shift that occurred?
Well, almost to a person, the only way they felt at the beginning of the course that they could hear God's voice was through reading the Bible and God speaking to them in that way. The idea that God would speak to us individually through a spontaneous flow of thoughts to our inner person was foreign to most of them. At the end, I believe that they saw that God can speak to us in a myriad of ways, that God is not limited, and He speaks to us through circumstances, through other people, through many, many ways, but they have come to value and really seek the way of God speaking to our inner person.
That's again, pretty remarkable shift in only 6 weeks. So
yes, 2 of the gentlemen in the course are engineers.
Yeah.
And so
might take them a little longer than 6 weeks. Huh?
It did take them a little longer.
Yeah.
But they became convinced before the end of the 6 weeks that God really did desire to speak to them directly, and they are much more open to that way of doing it.
One of the assignments that we have people work on, experiment with, is a CO2. So explain what that is and how people engaged in that.
CO2 stands for Church of Two, so it's 2 people who commit to sharing their hearts as much as possible on a daily basis, just a fairly brief time, 5 or 10 minutes. They check in using an acronym called SASHAY, which stands for Sad, Angry, Scared, Happy, Excited, Tender. It's simply a way that some psychologists developed as a way to identify our feelings. And so they check in and name the feelings that they're experiencing that day and say what what circumstances they're going through in life that gave rise to those feelings. So they each check in feelings, experiences for that day or recently, and then if they have heard something from the Lord, they also have a chance to share, this is what I think God is saying to me.
And what did people experience as they engaged in the CO2 practice? What difference did that make in lives?
Well, to a person, they all affirmed that, first of all, it made them much more sensitive to their own emotional and feeling state. Secondly, that it brought them much closer to the other person. All of them said, well, I knew this person before, but now I feel much more closely connected to them. So it's a tool for really developing deeper relationships.
And did I read that in one case that it really even impacted the family or the marriage?
Yes, there were one of the couples, they were doing CO2 with each other, husband and wife, and they said that it was amazing the amount of intimacy that it developed in their marriage in just 6 weeks.
Wow, that's encouraging. Another element that you mentioned before is coaching. So over the course of 6 weeks, each individual had, 3 coaching appointments, one-on-one coaching appointments with you?
Yes.
What did you see God do through that?
Well, in the beginning, of course, none of them knew what coaching was about. They were really expecting a mentor approach where I, as their mentor, told them what to do. A coach, rather, tries to draw out of them. And so I shared with them before the course started what Christian coaching is all about, a brief article. I also invited them to consider a personal development plan, and I asked them to give some thought to what areas of their own personal life they felt like God was inviting them to grow and work on. Most of them were, shall I use the word, shocked by the intensity that this brought about and the challenge for growth and change that the coaching sessions provided. I think most of them would say that they were more impacted even while the class, the course material was very powerful. I think most of them would say they were even more impacted by the individual coaching sessions.
And coaching is really one of the core values of Luke 10. We've come to believe that this is a very powerful thing to help people get clear about what God is doing in their lives, what God is saying to them.
Yes.
So it's a very powerful kind of a thing. And one of the things they said was it would have helped them if they were expecting one thing in coaching, but something else entirely different happened, and it would have helped them to have a little bit more preparation for that. Just say just a word about that. Like, for instance, if somebody's watching this video thinking about being in a foundations course, this would help them kind of know what to anticipate.
Well, first of all, on the course material, most of them told me at the end, in evaluating the course, that they were really expecting small group facilitation skills, how to do a better job of leading their house church. But instead, it was more foundational. It really is all about how to develop intimacy with the Father and how to develop intimacy with another person.
Right. So we do want to teach people how to lead house churches, but our conclusion was we needed 2 foundation courses. So you're just finished Foundation 1. A lot of people in your group said, hey, I want to sign up for Foundation 2. Talk about that. What's their anticipation, or what did they say about that?
Well, many of them were thinking, okay, I'm done with Foundations 1. I think I want to just sit back and maybe review the material. When I told them, well, the Foundations 2 is a prerequisite to enrolling in some of the other courses that are coming up, such as house church facilitation and coaching skills, then they said, well, I think maybe I'll go ahead and enroll in Foundations 2.
Right. So Foundation 1 and 2 are really the prerequisite courses for what we will call Coaching 1. That'll be how to lead a house church, how to facilitate that. We were so convinced of the necessity of these foundational practices in an individual life. You get these things, then coaching, leading a house church makes a whole lot more sense. So that's kind of the flow of the courses. Anything else that you would like to add about what was the experience like for you as the coach?
Well, it was a lot of fun working with these people. It was really a good group of people, even though they're from diverse backgrounds. They responded very well. They opened up their lives to one another. They responded really well to the coaching. It was just very fulfilling for me to coach them over these 3 sessions.
That's right. Well, our anticipation is over this next year, we hope to have between 20 and 25 cohorts, groups that are functioning on different levels, Foundation 1, Foundation 2, Coaching 1. And our prayer is that God will raise up more people like you who are qualified to lead these groups, because they're very powerful learning contexts for people to be in. So thank you for your work, Walt.
You're welcome.